Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar today. Today, we're doing another of our highlights of our award winners here at Brandon Hall Group. So, today's Excellence Spotlight is looking at how Cognizant creates innovative integrated learning experiences that drive business outcomes. As always, this session is eligible for HRCI, SHRM, and ATD professional development credits. So, make sure to note of that. Before we get into the highlight and our guests today, I want to share a little bit, obviously, about Brandon Hall Group and the awards program that we're highlighting. As you can see, there's a lot of different programs. Everything's ramping up for 2026, so you can see the launch and deadline dates here on the slide. If you download or when you get a PDF of these slides, these links will be active. You can apply for the awards yourselves, and so you can enjoy some of the benefits that our friends at Cognizant have seen from winning awards with us here at Brandon Hall Group. We also have a couple of in-person events each year that we're really proud of. There's the Excellence Conference, which is actually a month from now, but there's still time to register for that, as well as we have an AI Summit and a Women in Leadership Summit, both at our BRIC Center in Boca Raton. So check those out as well. And of course, there is also the Brandon Hall Group Institute where professionals can come and get different certifications and take part in different courses to expand their knowledge and grow their careers in learning, talent, and HR. Okay, so those awards, just a little bit more detail on the categories, right? So there's the technology category, there's an ed tech category, excellence in action. So we're looking at amplified employee voices there, and of course, general human capital management as well. Again, launch dates and deadlines are there. We really look forward to seeing everyone's submissions for this year's awards. It's always a really great program. And as you can see, we're going to highlight one of our winners today. As I mentioned, the Excellence Awards are in a month. It's just a really amazing event where we celebrate our award winners with a full-on awards gala to cap the entire event, along with a lot of informational and really valuable sessions where you can learn from one another, taking a look at excellence in action. So, having talked through some of those things, the awards program, the institute, the excellence conference, all of those things, is there anything that you'd be interested in learning more about? Please let us know because we want to make sure we get the information that you want to you so that you can follow up and we can get you going with what you need to be successful. So, we'll leave that open for another couple seconds, give people a chance to respond. And then once we close that, we'll move on. Are we looking there? Pretty good. Okay. And just to step on, I always encourage everyone to ask questions throughout the session. It's really important that there's a little bit of back and forth. I know that the Cognizant team will be happy to answer questions people have about their program and the award that they've won. So feel free to ask questions during. I'll keep an eye on the chat and the Q&A. We'll also try to squeeze in some time at the end to catch anything we may have missed. So feel free to ask us questions and share your own thoughts and your own insights on the topics that we're talking about. So please do that. With that, I would like to go ahead and introduce the panel today. Of course, we've got Suranjana Gupta. She's the Global Head of Learning for Cognizant Moment. We've got Eric Truong, who's the North America Lead of Learning for Cognizant Moment. We've got Sumana Ghosh, and of course, she's the Global Learning Content Lead, and myself, David Wentworth, Managing Director of Learning and Talent here at Brandon Hall Group. So it's really great that we have this whole team here to dig in because this group has done amazing work. They're going to talk through a specific program for which they won an award so we can get into the details of it based on the five criteria that we use to judge the awards. But you can see here they've got many awards to choose from to talk about today. So we're glad that they picked one and wanted to spend some time with us and dig in a little deeper to one of their award-winning programs. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Suranjana.
Thank you so much, David. And quickly on this. So every year we're very excited and proud to win all of the Brandon Hall Awards that we do. In fact, 2025 has been a milestone year of sorts for us because it was our 15th year of winning the Brandon Hall. And we had 15 entries and we won all of those 15. A lot of them were in the gold category, about eight, and we are going to talk to you about one such program that we won the gold for.
Yeah, with that, I thought in preparing for our highlights, there is one particular case study or work that we did that I thought hit all the boxes of how we were judged for that. So, Sumana, would you like to cover the one that we had in mind, starting with strategic alignment, design, and development? And uh, not sure if we can present again. David, could you
I
share?
It's disabled, but we can talk through it if that's so. David, what do you think? Because I can see my screen share is not available for me.
I will go ahead and start sharing and see if we can
Sure,
get, I need to fix that
absolutely.
for you. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'll let you know when to stay on, and then if we can proceed. So for now, if we can stay on this one, David, thank you. And to start with, like Eric said, Eric, you set the context. We will always have to come with the business objective, the business goal for any organization before we even start preparing for the design, the thinking of the blueprint. Forget everything. What comes first is that the KPI has to relate back to the learning objectives. And in this case, in BMW's case, as you can see, the name of the client is upfront. The trends were making the organization feel increasingly that the workforce, that is the sales team, needed to be extremely future ready. Future ready, why? Because clients' needs were becoming more and more complex, evolved. The team had to be very agile in being able to have product know how and also to be able to do superior consultative selling on the floor. Now, with that in mind, when they came to us, the clients came to us, they were also grappling with the fact that their own modalities of training were not creating that much of an impact on the learning audience, who felt that you're taking up our time, making us go through a lot of instructor-led training. I'm finally not remembering what you said in that one-day whole workshop or the two-day whole workshop, and therefore I'm not being able to do the necessary I cannot remember what to say, or I'm not being able to upsell and things like that. So whenever when we were thinking of the business goals and when we were thinking of the strategic alignment for this particular set of, I would say that this particular cluster of modules within this umbrella of sales enablement for the client, when we were thinking of having the business goals in place, these were some of the drivers that, it had to be that they would need to, the team, the learners would have to have that product knowledge at a very superior grade. They would have to have a very on the job kind of ready to go kind of knowledge sharing amongst them. And the fact that, whatever they were going through in terms of the content modalities we finally delivered would directly translate, it's difficult, I know, but would directly translate into meeting their sales targets and more. So with that, I'll probably cover a little bit about the design that then went into it. So that being the premise and that being the background, quickly what we understood, and for any design, for any development that we do, we will always have very deep dive analysis put in place first. So we did speak to multiple groups of the actual learner audience, took a lot of interviews, understood that one of the things was this paucity of time. And all of us know that paucity of time seems to come in the way of learning for every organization everywhere, no matter what the learner is supposed to do at the end of the day. In this case, the dealer's case, they really looked upon learning as, you're wasting my time. So don't take up my time with making me sit in front of a laptop or make me sit in a session. Let me get on with it. With that being one of the primary drivers, the others were that, what I was saying before, that the learning needed to be in a way that they would retain and quickly be able to translate into action. So it was interesting. Of course, learner centric and technology fueled micro learning, these are principles that all of us are often practicing. But in this case, what we also did was we followed a cycle where the knowledge levels very tangibly went from a basic to an advanced. So you see, in the beginning, we were able to give out the modules which only were about the product. And when the product was being taught, the product itself became king. The product was up front. You could see the product in terms of visuals and imagery like no other. So it was as if while people were going through digital module, it was almost as if they were touching a bike, touching a car with, before even touching the real thing at the showroom. Now, that being said, when the product knowledge was very formed up with digital modules and microlearning bites, lots of ready reckoners given on mobile phones, which they could readily refer to, the skills, the levels began rising up the Bloom's taxonomy, and so ultimately, the more advanced levels took them to be able to handle customers, to be able to handle objections, to be able to upsell. And for those kind of knowledge levels, the higher kind of objectives, we also employed slightly more complex strategies like, say, brand simulation, like, for example, simulations which were woven in with sentiment analysis. And at once you see the learning experience, what was product knowledge, and of course, what product knowledge was not dealt with simply. I was sharing with you that it was also very rich, also very, to life in that sense. As we became more cognitively complex, the strategies also reflected the content that needed to be covered. David, shall we move on and shall we pause for questions? Which is better, or would we like to take questions at the end? If so, then we can move on to the next slide, please.
And just to add some commentary, I think the thing that resonates with me most whenever I talk about this and my message to the audience is we always focus on being consumer grade on the learning content here. As Sumana mentioned, you could feel it, you could touch it. We followed we created our learning modalities to have the ethos of the BMW brand, and that's what really resonated to the dealers because they're out there looking at cars. They'll be walking, front end customers through it, potential buyers, and that's what being learner centric was all about.
Absolutely, absolutely, Eric. And while we're doing all of this, the other that I did want to touch upon is, again, the modules, like Eric said, would have covered the products, would have covered how they would want to interact with customers. And, interestingly, we also became very involved with the brand, the culture of the company, because a small little detail comes to mind where they were taught the entire intangible USP of a brand is something you can't really define. You can't really touch it, feel it, but there is that undefined quality which will set any brand apart. And in this case, we could see how they were also letting the dealers know that fill up the room with the aroma of coffee when the customer walks in, have them sit on the vehicle, maybe blow the stand fan in their hair, because you can give them the feeling of driving on the highway. And these were also little details that very interestingly we brought to life in a digital piece by employing multimedia. So we actually had a button that revved up the engine, replicated the engine sound. Somewhere else, it was a lot of abstract mood boards which brought all of these intangibles to life, and so on and so forth. Now, when we were obviously, these are complex learning designs at the back end. There's a lot of, and we all know from the industry, all of us who are practitioners, we know that there is a mesh of science and theory and learning constructs, learning objectives woven with KPIs. So we're doing so many things at the same time, and then it all has to look very presentable, very appealing. We're competing with social media, we're competing with Instagram and TikTok, and learner attention spans are very, very low indeed. Now, when we're delivering, when we were implementing, obviously this was just as we all of us do. It would have been iterative, collaborative, very much so. But there's also this bit is that there is a lot of piloting that makes it a success. That means that we will always do small portions, and then roll it out, get the feedback back, and some of it is also relatable to measuring the effectiveness. That was one of the principles that drove the engagement, because you could do course correction with small portions rolled out to the actual learner audience. You got back the feedback, and there were things that they were saying during before you really delivered the gold, is that there were some things they really liked and some things they maybe didn't, and you could correct this. Of course, there was a bit of how will I say, there was a bit of learning in the beginning, because such organizations who are so, and we've all grown up admiring their design for forward design thinking, but at the back end, when it's about deploying learning experiences, the LMS probably sometimes is non-existent. Maybe they're learning off SharePoints. And those are lessons you learn as you go along when you're implementing, because you are then being able to realize that, well, there is a lot of streamlining to be done. In the beginning, what is the way that courses are even getting deployed? So we're learning those as we go along with the client. And then, of course, as we always do, there is iterative processes which keep ending with quality testing to be able to ensure that robust delivery. Of course, in this case, in our cases, the learner audiences were all across North America. So you could say that this was not as if that it was touching the entire global population of the client audience. Eric, did you want to add anything in this regard?
No, I think I was going to ask if you could share a little bit about how we measure it too, because of course, we measured a lot of data across all of this, and some of that goes beyond the LMS and what just the mouse click could do. Would you mind giving a highlight on how we did that?
Absolutely. In fact, Eric, the one of the drivers here was that when we received the client request, and I think this is our fourth year of engagement with the client, and we've been delivering every year, also winning Brandon Hall Gold Awards every year for this particular client. So when they first came to us, the net promoter scores were down. And amongst many of the criteria that governed the success of the programs were that we were able to measure through net promoter score, we were able to look at a lot of survey metrics. So when I was sharing a while ago that we would have looked at the pilot satisfaction indices from the pilot itself, and those were small groups of actual learners, the dealers themselves, who would be finally taking the training in larger groups. Right from that up till the point that, as Eric, you said, the clicks and the completion rates are a given. They will be there, and that was not all. But to be able to measure by seeing whether they were able to convert, had sales targets risen, or rather, their targets had been met, and had they been able to convert, had they been able to upsell as expected, that was the level of cohesion with the organization that we had, where they were coming back and telling us so, or sometimes being able to also say, and this was verbatim feedback as well as scored feedback that kept coming to us at every stage, to be able to see where they were saying, yes, I was able to remember what to say to the customer, or you gave me a script which I was able to use, because sometimes they will say things like, it really helped me to know what exactly to say. So they were also measuring it themselves against what you gave them. And that being said, of course, CSAT is something we all look forward to, and those were post-training days. But yes, and inherent assessments which had redemptive features. So all of these came together to be able to know that we were able to, of course, we were able to measure impact very much successfully.
Yeah, just to sum that up, what the measurement we were able to see, which breaks the Kirkpatrick scale even, is the impact on sales performance. This is the ROI on training itself. And it's invaluable to get a good net promoter score, because as you can imagine, the middle section of anybody submitting a net promoter score, the neutral, the lukewarm, that doesn't really help your score. Sometimes it can hurt, but creating, training that can invigorate multiple senses outside of just click rate and completion rate, as Sumana mentioned, is a key winner here. With that, let's move on. Sumana, would you cover the last category for us, please?
the lessons that we learned, right, Eric? And what are we looking
Yes.
forward to? And as we go through the year, every year, we're definitely seeing expansion. We're definitely seeing newer areas come into the fold of digital learning at which the organization is engaged with us for. One of the important lessons, I think, on the part of the customer as well as for us has been this, that they were happily and surprised to discover. They were surprised or delighted to discover that digital could become a good complement in the first place to their instructor-led and workshop-led formats, something which perhaps they hadn't really explored much before. So you could say now, as I look back from the time we started till as I speak to the point where I speak today to you, that this has been one of the shifts, and we've come along with them to understand that a lot of content, a lot of modules, a lot of teach that we're deploying can successfully become digital. So we're also being able to go back and tell them, look at the success of this one. Would you like to? And then bring up the next, and so on and so forth. The other that has definitely helped, I'd say that we've realized, and it's a given, again, we spoke about learner attention spans, that while you were short, while you were micro, and you don't go away from the micro learning principles, within it, definitely structure helps. So even if it is a very compact 10 or 15-minute module, you've got to have that structure, the module top structure, the topic structure. They must understand and identify the learning pathway. That's what they're expecting usually. And the other is that always, and this is a given, we've seen this before with success across programs that we keep designing for clients, to be able to make it as realistic as possible. And I'll give you an example here. I'm kind of trying to draw up the imagery for you, that to the point where even the showroom is perhaps replicated to the T, with everything that is even a hardtack on the wall is replicated. So the simulation of the real life scenarios, those are things that are consistent. Some of these elements have been fetching good results. They look for it, and that's when they feel reassured that I'm in my space and I'm relating to what you're telling me. As for what we want to do next, definitely one of the things we've realized and we've been talking to the customer about is that they themselves are using a lot of futuristic designs, whether it is AR, VR, XR. There is a lot of that happening when it's really not in the learning world that they inhabit, but it is being used by them very extensively. And one of the building on the success of what we've been delivering so far to them, which have been, of course, as I explained to you, digital modules primarily, those levels of complex interactivities are one of the future focus kind of areas that we have with them. We are thinking of those. And also to be able to, here's what we are primarily doing, is that it's rich where our sales cluster is concerned, but to be able to touch other facets within the organization. So those could mean process, those could mean technology. There's a bit of technology training that does happen through them with us, because dealers often need to master apps, and I maybe haven't touched upon it, but small adoption for, say, systems or apps which customers need to know and they need to know. So those have been happening. But definitely one of the outlooks for future is to see what other areas within the organization can we bring learning strategies and expertise to and address needs. But Eric, again, Sharon and Eric, if you would like to please add anything.
Yeah, I'll just quickly circle back to the point you made about being detail oriented and making things realistic to the thumbtack on the wall, right? I think the final message to the audience before we go into Q&A is having that touch of realism is very important in the age of generative AI, and we are tempted to create training that is, AI generated. Don't forget to bring in the human factor to it. Just to set context, some of our modules have a very detailed showroom, and then we can swap out the car or the motorcycle that's on display. But a very familiar, color scheme, the imperfections on the wall, like Sumana mentioned, that's what really drew in our learning audience. So with that, I think we'll move on to opening it up for any Q&A. Sumana and Suranjana, if there's anything else you'd like to say to close us out, please jump in, and then we'll open up the floor.
But thank you, Eric. And that last point was really great. And I couldn't have put it better. But yeah, we can open up the floor unless Shuranjana has any closing thoughts.
No, I think both of you have summed it up. I think, in a sense, it's keeping the learner at the heart of the entire journey. So everything that the learner kind of will see, will do, will touch and feel is what we kind of ensure we're keeping as part of all of these courses. But
Thank
yeah,
you,
we're happy to
Shuranjana.
take any questions.
Yes, sure. And I think those are all great points that you're wrapping up on with this sort of AI focused world we live in. It's, that an idea of knowing your learner, knowing your audience is even more critical in the ways that you're describing, that something that may seem small or insignificant or might not be caught, by us on this side of it. Those learners, that's their world and they live it every day and they would notice, and it can quickly take somebody out of the immersion that you're trying to create. So I love that you guys spent a lot of time focusing on that part. I think the other key differentiator here for me is the relationship with the client, with BMW, as you put this together, really focusing on what it is they were trying to achieve. And I just wanted to dig a little deeper into that from a measurement standpoint. Early on, was it very much sort of a partnership where they came not just saying, "Hey, build this for us"? It was, "Here are the things that we're trying to achieve," and so, it says something like, improve sales, but okay, did they get into the details of what that meant to them, as opposed to just a broad sense of, this is our high level goal that we're trying to achieve?
The second, definitely the second, as you said, absolutely correctly, is that in the beginning, 4 years ago, it was we're not doing so well where training is concerned, sales training experience is concerned. And these are some of the broad points, is whatever I said to you during the conversation. But you're right. Lately, uh, it's become much more focused. It's about this is where we're doing say it's an app training and it's already happening in a certain way. What more can we do with it? Or sometimes, interestingly, because we're talking to and engaged with multiple groups of stakeholders within the organization, a particular group, actually, David, you're helping us, will probably notice that the other group has won a Brandon Hall Gold, and then they get interested and they say that, okay, what can my group do then to beat this? Because I want a gold award for myself as well next year. And maybe, that need hadn't arisen last year, but they're really right now talking to us. So you're right. I mean, now it's become much deeper, sharper. The focus areas are, of course, expanding. We were wondering why they would probably need to train people on accessories, but that became a training all by itself. Just the accessories that go with the motorbikes. So, yes, you're right. Mhm.
That's excellent. And you mentioned other teams vying for awards, and having been with Brandon Hall Group since 2012, over the years, I've often been approached, "How do we win an award?" And it's really about, all the categories or the criteria are weighted equally, but I think there's a real focus on that measurement piece, that measurable outcomes, and
Yes.
it's really about that early on relationship. You can't just say, "Well, the client came to me and said they're trying to improve sales, and so we're going to build training." That's not enough. We have to get into, what does that mean for you? And I even think another step forward is, how do they currently measure that? Like, how are they going to measure whether or not this outcome that they're after has happened? I think that really is a big influence in how you build and deliver training, is if you know what the measurement process is too. And I don't think we often that's shared with that sort of client provider relationship enough. So I like to see
That's true.
that's where you guys
Yes.
are with that.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, let's see. There's really no other questions that have come through, so I want to thank everybody for their time. Obviously, reach out to anybody on the Cognizant team if you have any further questions that you'd love to get answered about this program or any others that they're involved in, because as you can see, they clearly have a golden touch when it comes to their learning programs. But I want to thank the team for joining me. I also want to thank everybody that joined in the audience. I really appreciate it. And we really look forward to seeing you on another webinar. So thanks, everyone.